Keith, what's the Bill 36 update?
Well, unfortunately, it's not good news. I did not expect this, Sean, but the Premier had a property rights task force travel the province, and the message from Albertans was pretty loud and clear that this type of central planning law and the power for the Cabinet to rescind, feedlot and dairy barn approvals, water licenses, gravel pit approvals, development rights, you name it, is just not something that we want to see in Alberta. And the Premier and the government have decided that they're not going to change Bill 36. It's full steam ahead. They have said that they're going to create what's called a property rights advocate, and that's through a thing called Bill 6. The problem with the property rights advocate is that this new government appointment the person has no powers. All they have the power to do is to file a report in the legislature once a year. And so if the Cabinet decides to take an area of southern Alberta and say no more feedlots and rescind the CFO approvals from the NRCB and rescind the water licenses, if those dairy farmers or feedlot operators go to the property rights advocate and say, hey, this has just happened to me, I've been shut down, he's going to say, the property rights advocate will say, well, did the Cabinet use Section 11 of the Land Stewardship Act? And the CFO operator would say yes, and the only thing he's going to be able to say at that point is, you've got no right to compensation, you've got no access to challenge the decision in the court. They've not addressed the fundamental problems.
So some people would say, okay, come on, Keith, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So what do you say to that?
Well, I wish that were true. I wish that were true. And if it wasn't going to happen, then I think, why did they give themselves these powers? This is a single-purpose tool. Why did they make it? It's the centerpiece of this legislation, these powers to rescind things. They've already announced on April 5th, 2011, remember, that their intention to rescind 24 oil sands leases. So they've already shown they're prepared to use it. I came across some slides, a PowerPoint presentation that the government uses with the government logos on it. It's got a picture of southern Alberta. They explain one of the purposes of this legislation is to determine place-based decision making, and they even have an example on it that says, is a feedlot okay here? So they're clearly thinking about using this. And the other thing is, they just won't back away from it. They believe, and some of the southern MLAs, Barry McFarland was quoted in a local newspaper down there speaking to a municipal council a number of months ago, saying this is good legislation because it'll give us power to override the NRCB. So there's just too many things pointing to the fact that, first of all, these powers are real. They're not backing away from them. They've used them on the oil patch. They've got them in their own slides saying they're planning on doing it to agriculture with the government logo on it. So I wish it weren't real. What I fear is, I've spent my whole career representing landowners and farmers. This legislation takes away their rights, makes them very vulnerable to the whims of the Cabinet or the bureaucracy. It's going to create incredible red tape for farmers, and anytime you do anything on land, it's just a bad idea.
My understanding was that this was seemed like it was kind of going away. I wasn't reading about it as much. It seemed like there was going to be some changes, and we were going to kind of come to a bit of a middle road.
Yes.
We sort of had this, sort of took the teeth out of it, I guess. And we found a middle spot, but you're saying that hasn't happened.
Well, it was even better than that. When Premier Redford became leader, as you might recall, she was voted in on October 1st. On the Sunday, October 2nd, she announced that she was suspending Bill 36, the Land Stewardship Act. Stopped it dead. And then she committed to doing a review process. And she did that property rights task force that traveled the province in January and heard from over 1,300 or 1,400 Albertans who said loud and clear, this is a bad idea. We don't need central planning in Alberta. There's no imminent crisis. Get rid of this law. And the Property Rights Task Force report, which is available on the government website, even says that's what they heard. Yeah. But instead she said, no, we're going ahead with this law. It's going ahead. They're not making changes to it. The only thing they're doing is creating a property rights advocate who will have no powers, won't be able to create rights for you. If you're shut down, you're out of luck. Full stop. The property rights advocate won't be able to do anything for you.
So leave the current government out of it for a second.
Sure.
Who are the people that are really pushing for this? Who wants Bill 36 other than the government?
Well, I think, one of the things that people can do to fact check this is go to the Alberta Government Directory, staff directory online, and do a search on land use and see how many government employees have had their job descriptions redesignated as having a key role in this program, in agriculture, in sustainable resource development, in environment, and in tourism, and in other departments. And you will see that there's been a retooling of the bureaucracy focused around doing this central planning concept from Edmonton with all these new powers to override municipalities, tell municipalities how to plan things. And I think they're a major driver to it, and the current politicians have accepted their advice and have accepted this as being a good policy.
So is it just government, though, that's pushing for it? Is there actually...
Oh, the conservation groups and the environmentalists are hugely supportive of it. They're talking about one of the latest things to come out of the Agri-Environmental Partnership is they're talking about biodiversity easements on farmland. There's a huge push from the conservation community, from the wilderness groups. They want this legislation. They want to preserve viewscapes. I mean, we've talked about this before. They have this idea that farmland should become the playground and the nature preserve for folks in the cities. And not all of them do. I'm overstating that a bit, but it illustrates the mindset that we're dealing with here.